Good evening. So what'd you think? I'm still processing it. I'm Stacey Wilson Hunt. I work here in Hollywood as the Hollywood editor for New York Magazine and Vulture, and I'm very honored to speak to the brains behind this movie, who are Janicza Bravo and Brett Gelman. Come on up.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hi. Oh yeah, you can. Yeah.
Hello. Nice to see you again.
It's been so long since we were over there.
It has been. So before we get into the movie, I would love to know, what was each of yours big break in the business?
Is that has it happened?
Yeah.
Let's assume it's happened, and maybe who or what gave you your first foothold in the business where you thought, I can actually do this and make a living as a creative person.
Oh, what?
I would say for you.
Brett, oh, you're gonna answer for me?
Let me guess.
Okay.
Let's guess for each other.
Okay.
Or is it that's too
no,
cutesy
I like
and
that.
dumb?
No, I like it because I can't.
I think getting into South by
Yeah, that's good.
was your first short film getting into South by Southwest.
But
and then that led to everything. Or was it Gregory Go Boom winning an award at Sundance?
I think it's that. For me, I'm just going to answer my own because I can't answer Brett's. But I'm going to say what he said. My second short film was this short called Gregory Go Boom, which played at Sundance, and the validation of having gotten into the the validation of having gotten into the festival and getting to win an award. I don't think it said to me I can make a living in this space, but it said I think I at least will have more opportunities to make. I'm not sure what the length of time that is, but I felt it was definitely going to allow me
validation in a sense.
For sure.
And you were signed when that happened. You got signed when that happened.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
That's pragmatic.
Thank you.
Okay.
How about you, Brett?
Mine, I think, was like when I really thought, like, okay, I've like done something that's going to potentially start leading in a direction of a career that I want. Was I did this show. I did this one-man musical as part of this greater variety series on HBO called 1000 Cats. That was under Funny or Die Presents. So as Funny or Die is like anthology series, and that I think was that was the spark of feeling like my career was starting to move in a certain direction.
Had you been in New York mostly auditioning there and doing theater, or what kind of trajectory had you had before that point?
I graduated from North Carolina School of the Arts in 1999, and then I went to New York and lived there for 10 years, and mostly what I was doing there was the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater. And I was not auditioning a lot. I actually was pretty inactive, and I was part of this whole, the whole alternative, for lack of a better word, comedy scene there. And so that became more about developing things, because the representation that I had at the time was like, well, if you're going to act, you got to develop for yourself, but you can't be in any of the things that you're developing. So at a certain point, but then I moved here, and then that all just started to change, and I started to put my foot down and tried to work my career in the direction that I wanted to, and tried to make myself be seen as in the way that I wanted to. But that's something that we both, I think, we still feel like we're working towards constantly.
I'm a never-ending process.
Yeah.
And when did you two meet for the first time? Under what circumstances?
We met in a commercial about 9 years ago. Actually, it's like soon it's going to be 9 years. I think next Friday is 9 years. And I used to be a stylist. I used to work costumes, and and Brett was acting in this commercial that was for the New York State Lotto jackpot, and he played kind of like a Jewish minstrel character that was very stressful and upsetting.
Have you guys seen these commercials? Very weird.
Very upsetting, and he's like, money. It's just like horrible, and it's not right.
But like his body's shrunken and his head is normal
head is
size.
larger,
don't watch it before bed. I'm trying to tell you, it's scary.
And it's almost like the poster actually, but smaller. He's smaller, but his head is really big and his body's very small. And
no beard, no hair.
Oh yeah, and then bifocals. It's really hot. And actually, in Lemon, the scene where he meets Nia Long is kind of like is inspired by that time when we met, because it felt like we were both working on cancer. And and so yeah, so that's how we met.
And was it love at first sight?
No.
Okay.
For me, it was.
Really? Oh.
It took her a while to warm up to me and not think that I was.
Yeah, I don't like to eat and shit in the same place, as they say.
And she's very cautious in terms of responsible, emotionally responsible.
Not a bad thing to be.
Actually, in regards to that and other things, you're not
emotionally responsible.
No,
thank you.
I mean,
this seems like
you're an artist, so you're not
discuss that.
Yeah.
So I would love to know, and this may seem like a basic question, but I've been asking myself this question after I saw the film a few days ago. What is this movie about?
It is about failure. It's about fear of arriving at a life meant for someone else, meaning that when we wrote the first draft of it about 5.5 or 6 years ago, I was in my late 20s, Brett was in his mid 30s, and while we're obviously inhabiting very different bodies, our anxieties were almost identical. Our friends or the people in our lives were getting married, having children, buying homes, and I was at a job that I didn't want to be having, and I couldn't figure out what my path was going to be to the thing that I wanted. And he felt very similarly, and there was this anxiety that everyone in our life or everyone in my life was passing me by. And I thought, am I going to wake up in 10, 15 years and have had no control of my own destiny? Am I going to arrive at a life that I feel was meant for someone else, not mine? Like, there's this idea of the thing that you want for yourself, and you can see it, but not everybody gets to get to it. And there was just like this real sort of agony and pain that I wasn't going to get to that. And so Lemon is very much like an exorcism of that. Like, it is like all the failure that that we did not want for ourselves. It's like failing at career, it's failing at love, and it's being a failure in the eyes of your family. And so I think for both of us, the idea was like, if we sort of wrote it all down, then it meant that because we'd put it out there, that it would sort of, we would avoid that because it existed in this
you acknowledged
one.
it in a public
exactly.
way.
We acknowledged it, we saw it, we wrote it, we were like, absolutely not. It's some sort of like witch incantation of sorts, I guess, if you like, it's like what is that thing like where people write things down and then they burn them and then I think you're past it? I'm not articulating, but you have a sense of what I mean. Yeah. So it was like that. The experience of writing the movie and putting it out there was that. It was, this will not be us.
And did you know from the beginning that you wanted to direct, or did you just initially set out to tell the story and then you would decide later, okay, this is how we're going to bring it to life?
I was always going to direct it. I went to theater school at NYU for design and directing, and I had been directing theater, and costuming was my day job. That was how I made money because I'm not a rich kid, and I didn't get to just be like, I'm this, and so that's my job now, is whatever I'm saying, the words I'm using, because I have money. So I had
to work toward that.
Yeah, I had to work towards. I mean, I had to pay for things and live in a place.
You guys
and
can relate to that, right?
Wear clothes. So all of that stuff cost money and like eat to live. So because of those annoying factors, I had to have a day job, and my day job was styling. And so I had always been a director. I'd been directing theater, and I was paying for my own theater independently. And so when I arrived at directing for film, it wasn't by accident. It was something that I was manifesting. It was just taking time, and it required money, and it was, I was using my own money to make my work. And so yes, I was always going to direct it.
Yeah, there is nothing by accident with Janicza Bravo.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, it's and for anybody who ever works with her, it becomes clear immediately who's driving the ship and who has the vision. And this was very much, this project was all, helmed by her. I think I was a bit of the inspiration for it, in terms of that I matched what we were going through, what she was going through. And then I also just like in life sort of represent that a lot of the time on like an everyday basis. I'm very much like a fumbler and a bumbler. And also she wanted to make a movie that was sort of her answer to this type of movie, this type of comedy that's made about like a guy like me in his 30s or 40s who's stuck, but then, the girlfriend's really hot and she winds up staying with him even though he's like, a schlub or a loser, and, it all works out for him. And so she really wanted to make her answer to that, which was, about a movie about a guy like this where, well, it doesn't necessarily work out for him, and you do feel what actually, as surreal as the film can get, I feel like she does an amazing job of keeping it, having that surreal quality almost enter into your consciousness in an even realer way than these films do, because it hits that surreal tip. It sort of opens you to the pain that comes with being in a spiral, but also at the same time addressing the immense privilege that this character has in being able to spiral like that and not be destroyed. Because if he was a different had a different standing in society, he wouldn't be able to fail on this plateau like that. So she's constantly playing with comfort and discomfort there.
And there's great satire. Michael Cera's character is like the young Frankenstein hairdo. And his pontificating about Barcelona. It's like, who hasn't been stuck talking to that person at an industry event or a party? And you're just like, oh my God. And really, and sad to say, this town is filled with those people.
But they have less good hair.
They have less good hair, yes. He did have absolutely the best hair.
And less good outfits than that. But yeah.
There's inspiration around, for very, very potently.
For sure.
So tell me about your writing process. Were you side by side? Did you take a pass? And then, Brett, did you, add your sort of flair? And then were you going back and forth? Because I always find the co-writing experience to be so fascinating for people.
I think with this, the very first draft, we did it side by side. We wrote it at South by. How that happened is I was there with my first short film, which is called Eat, which Brett is in, and Catherine Waterston. And it's about a man who this woman gets locked out of her apartment. She ends up in his apartment, and then he strangles her. It's like very chill. And so we were at the festival with that, and I met these women on the very first night of the festival who I lied to. They asked if I had a feature because they liked the short, and I lied and said that I did. And then at the end of like hanging out with them, they gave me their card, and they were from Sundance, and they're like, we're considering scripts for the lab. We'd love to read it. And I was like, oh, read what? There's no script. And I was like, what have I said? I've gone so far into this. And so that night I was like, hey, Brett, I lied to these women about this script, and Eat was the first thing I'd ever written, and I'd written that like 6 years ago, and it was 17 pages. So I was like, I feel confident that I can definitely write like more than 17 pages, but also it's due in 5 days. So maybe you could write that with me. And we'd been talking about this movie, and so we ended up writing a version of it in 5 days, side by side at like this coffee shop, and it was like terrible. I mean, the script was terrible, but we had like a great, horrible time writing it. And then after that, we spent about maybe like 9 or 10 months kind of going back and forth. I think after we'd handed that in, he did a pass and I did a pass, and then we did one together. And I kind of like don't remember how it went after that, but those were the first 3 steps or 4 steps.
I think that, and I had, being in sketch comedy and the like, and taking on really weird writing assignments with my friend before, thinking that would be the like ticket to getting some sort of writing career. Remember, like, we stayed up all night. We wrote like a full episode of a sitcom one night, me and this friend of mine, John Daly, because our manager was like, who is also in the movie. Because our manager was like, yeah, like write it like an old sitcom that isn't on anymore and make it like nuts. So we were like, okay, cool. Let's
did really good advice.
Always never listen to your representation about what you should do creatively. And so we wrote this like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air spec where like Will becomes a gangster, a gangster rapper, which. It was 2 white guys. No, I think it's racist, probably. But we thought it was, I mean, we love Will Smith. We loved hip hop. We love gangster rap. So it's cool for 2 white dudes to write that. Probably.
I would
not
love
really.
to read this.
Yeah,
actually.
It's somewhere.
I want to read it.
I think it's very problematic.
I want to read it.
MC Hammer was a guest star. It was, and then the older daughter was dating MC Hammer.
Great.
MC Hammer was not a gangster rap. We did not think of him in that way. We weren't that ignorant at the time. We at least knew that. No, but the difference between MC Hammer and gangster rap, I mean.
Cool.
Anyway,
what is what
so
are you
our
answering?
process was our process is mostly like her being like, I think like this should happen, and then this, and then this, and then this, and then this, and then this. She sort of outlines it. I'm like, that's genius, and then I vomit out into dialogue what she has outlined. And then she goes over the terrible things that I've written. And I mean, some of it's good. I mean, some of it's very good. No, but she goes through that, and then she puts it, I mean, she writes very much in the singular way too. And she has a very distinct voice too, in how her characters speak. It's very much like, I mean, she's an auteur. So, I mean, it's the same way in which, what Tarantino's characters speak, Woody Allen's, Spike Lee's, they all have this
cadence and a rhythm.
Yeah, they're speaking in the voice of their auteur, and that is the world in which is created. Their colloquialisms are of the god, which is the writer and director.
Right.
So and so she puts it into that voice a lot too, and then she's very, very good at taking like all this gobbledygook. I like writing a lot of monologues, and then she'll take it and like put it in one line, and it'll say everything that I said in all those lines.
But she's a great editor, and that's editing. I mean, you're editing all along, which I mean, the movie's a perfect length. There isn't a scene that feels extraneous. It feels very tight, but also very open, which I think is interesting in trying to tell a story this kind of fluid, So you did very good job on the editing.
Thank you.
And I have a particularly favorite line in the script, which is when Isaac arrives at Cleo's family's home. He says, "I wasn't told there would be accents." That is one of the funniest lines I've ever, and of course, it's delivered in your typical droll, perfect way. Who wrote that? That is hilarious.
You did.
Did I?
Yeah.
It feels like me. Yeah. Thank you. I didn't want to take credit, but I did feel like I wrote that.
You should.
Okay, cool. I wrote that.
And I love how cool her family was too. Like, this guy just said this really weird thing, and they're like, "Come on inside." I mean, it was cool. People are cool to each other.
It was the families, the Seder versus the barbecue are very much inspired kind of by what each of our families feel like. My family is very yellow and warm and saturated and
Colors
colorful,
were beautiful too,
and,
yeah.
and everyone's talking at the same. It's very boisterous and big and jolly. And then Brett's family is also jolly, but like beigeur.
Not as
Right.
colorful.
And more like,
Well, like
shouting at the same. Everyone's like shouting at the same time, while my family's all like talking at the same time.
Your
There's-
family can talk about something terrible happening in a really joyous, fun way.
Yeah.
And my family can talk about something amazing happening in a very depressing, dark way.
That's exactly right.
But I cut you off. I'm sorry. What were you going to say?
I have no idea, but I think that's great.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Sounds like a
I
perfect
that.
melding of communities of people,
Yeah.
you might say.
Yeah.
So I read there was a really kind of sweet way in which you cast Nia Long in this movie. Tell me a little bit about how you attracted her to the script, and she's so great. And it's so fun to see her do something like this. Like I haven't seen her do like a really cool indie piece in a while, not for lack of her ability, but she's just been doing like, she did Beaches and more commercial stuff. How did you get her interested in the story?
I mean, I think Nia and lots of actresses who are of color, and maybe even actresses in this age range, find that there are less opportunities for them, and especially in terms of like, we'd been making this movie for a while. We've been trying to make it for a while. So we had talked to other actresses before. We were finally getting to make it again. And in terms of like getting FaceTime with like fancier Black actresses, that was not exactly the hardest, because there are just less opportunities, and there are less opportunities in this independent space. And so I think, you know, our film is off enough and strange enough, and it's not that it's like, well, I've not read this, what is that? I guess I could hang out on your planet for this period of time. And our commitment was very short. We were offering them like 75 cents for, you know, 4 or 5 days of shooting. And so I think it was like, even if this is terrible, it's not that much of my life, and most likely no one will ever see it. Like, I think like as far as like what the bar is that people
Risk
are going,
was low.
yeah.
Right.
But as far as Nia, how it worked was, we sent her the script. We reached out to her agent or her manager. I think they said like they read it and they were like no. And then our producer kept asking. I was like, no, like I was really insistent on whether or not they'd actually read the script, and then I was like, I'm sure they read it. I'm sure it's strange, but I can like explain it. And then when I was talking to our producer, I was like, did you tell them that I'm Black? And he was like, what? That's not relevant. I was like, no, it is relevant. Like, you have to tell her that I'm a Black woman, just because I like went through her career and I was like, she has not been directed by a Black woman, and I think that will make a difference. And also, we were both like from the Caribbean, and we were first generation, and I was like, she'll like all of that's going to be great for her. And then he called her agent, and with like much disgust, I think, like told him, and then he was like, oh, okay. And then he passed it on to her, and like within 24 hours, I don't even know if she'd read the script, but within 24 hours, she was like, I'd love to meet you. I'll read it over the next couple of days, or she'd already read it. I can't remember. And then we met up. We hung out for like 6 hours on Father's Day and last year. And then she was like, I'm already doing it, but I just wanted to like force you to hang out with me for this long to see if like I could handle it. And of course I could. So yeah,
that paints a very bleak picture of what agents, how they just fuck everything up.
They say no to a lot of stuff. I mean, I think they're also protecting their people from weirdos. Like
Did you say I'm married to Brett Gelman? I mean, didn't that like
I think
put
like
her, you know, at
our
rest?
move, we had a lot of our by the time we were offering it to her, I think Brett, Michael, Judy, and maybe a couple other people are in the movie, but I'm sure he's like, these are all like freaks. Like, I don't know. Like, I gotta protect my relationship with her and make sure that I'm not like sending her into some like real bad vibe, you know. He doesn't know who we are, and me. I'd only made short films at that point, and I had directed an episode of a television show that hadn't even come out yet. So it was like, while I felt very competent and capable, I think it's not with what is considered a first-time director when you haven't made a feature. I think it makes sense with someone at her caliber for there to be trepidation. Sure.
And it was really important for us to get her specifically, and if she said no, get another actress that was
American
and from the mainstream world like that, who don't get opportunities to be in independent films and auteur films because, well, it's mostly, you know, those are mostly white spaces, you know, but, you know, we didn't want like, Nicole Bahari's great, Maya Rudolph is great, but we wanted, you needed somebody who was like an icon of cinema that,
But of like black films.
Yeah, black films that white filmmakers
Fresh
don't
Prince.
even.
She was on Fresh Prince too.
Yes, that you know, but of the black mainstream space that white filmmakers don't even consider, unfortunately, which is not good because it is a gigantic pool of brilliant talent. And so we wanted like, it's like, and it was funny too because, you know, we'd tell our white friends who was in the movie and they're all like, oh, Michael Cera, that's amazing. And then, you know, you tell Janicza's family or our black friends who are in the movie.
My family didn't
They don't know who
anybody.
Michael
They were
Cera
like,
is.
what? They're like, Nia Long, that's great. They were like, how did you get Nia Long? I was like, a lot of people think Michael Cera is pretty fancy too. And they were like, don't know who that is. Not familiar with his canon.
That's the secret, to have someone who appeals to all these different audiences.
Totally.
And that's why, you know, it's questionable why more filmmakers don't program their talent that way. You know, you could really broaden the audience too. Nia Long fans, I'm sure, clamored to see this movie.
Unclear, but but the white side, and they did see her in it. Don't know about that.
I have a very similar fan base to Nia.
Is that so?
I do. I do. I hope
have,
I do. I really hope I do.
You have a very big fan base. You've been very busy.
Do I?
You do.
Oh,
I would
that's
say,
good
don't
to hear.
second guess. You're on Stranger Things, for God's sake.
Right.
That's huge.
That is big. That is big.
That's a
the jury's
giant
out on
universe.
whether that's big for me or just
matter.
like, you get to be in this, kid.
Doesn't matter.
Sit down and count your blessings, and yeah, maybe we'll let you in it
Any
again.
association with that show is beneficial.
I
trust
feel
me.
very grateful, and
Yes. And you've worked hard for it. So I would love to know, what did you learn about each other making this film that you didn't know before?
I don't know. I mean, she really didn't surprise me much.
I was like, you raised your hand. I'm like, is that yours? Oh no! That you can raise your hand. I don't know if you're allowed
Do you know
to.
the answer to that question?
Yeah, I was like, do you have insight into this?
What are you gonna say?
She do work in wardrobe. I remember I worked for like 10 years. I remember you were doing wardrobe. I don't remember.
We worked together a decade ago.
I remember that hat. You wear hats.
Yeah, I did wear hats. That's correct.
This hat's new, though.
This is a new hat. This is a new hat. But what did did I learn something about you? I don't know.
It's not
I
an
don't
easy
know. I don't
thing to
think
collaborate with your
I think that
partner.
we came
you know?
into this, though. This was, you know, it took us 5 years to make. We both knew, or I knew, that she was going to excel at what she was going to do. You know, there was no doubt in my mind. So it didn't really. It surprised me every day, just in terms of like the moment of it, that it was just like, oh my God, that's so awesome, you know, that you're shooting it that way and that you're blocking this that way, and that note for me, you know, I mean, the big surprise was that how I always saw playing this character was very much physically similar to me until like 3 months before. She looked at me and she was like, I don't want to see any of you physically in this character. She's like, no raising that eyebrow, no mouth breathing, keep that mouth closed. You know, and we did walking rehearsals in our living room, and that was a surprise. But I mean, that was more of a surprise about me, but what that filtered through her. But in terms of her, I mean, she behaved in the exact way that I knew that she would.
Imagine a great leader on set. I have a feeling.
Oh my God, I'm fantastic.
No, I can see it. I think you'd be. I can.
She's
really
very
see it.
good.
Yeah.
She's very good at yelling at people in silence.
How do you do that?
Brett says I have this special talent of spreading cancer in silence, and
I did not say cancer.
Yes, you did. You said I know how to give a set cancer with silence.
I think I said that about myself.
Oh, maybe you did, and then I was like, I took
but with
it.
volume, no, I don't know. I don't know, but
I just think I don't like screaming, and I don't think you need to shout to get your way. And I find, but what ends up happening sometimes when you are working in that way is that people will take kindness for weakness, and so the process of making anything that matters to you is incredibly difficult, and there are a lot of emotions and feelings in making this, and people get emotional, and when they're not getting their way, they get like really like, you know, up in arms about it, and I can be very stoic. So there are like people who would come at me with like this aggressive energy, and I would just look into their souls and make them feel really bad by doing very little.
How long did that process take? Is this like a couple of
just like
seconds?
an energy. I have like a pretty bad vibe, or I can just have a bad vibe. I'm an only child, and so I think in being an only child, you learn how to protect yourself, and you learn it maybe like sooner than other people do because you only have yourself, and so you have like a lot of defense mechanisms that you can engage with, and so yeah, I don't know. I just get very hard and cold, and that's like very tough for people when they need things from you, and
yeah,
I never do that with actors though. I'm talking about like everyone else but the actors, where I'm like,
yeah, she's very protective of the actors, even if they're difficult. They would never know that she.
No one I've ever worked with is difficult.
No actor you've ever worked with has been
like
difficult. And then I think like I'm sort of the like. I'm the like beast in the cage that you're like, oh, I'll unlatch the lock if it gets really crazy, if we want it to get really nuts.
I don't think that was something I was engaging with. I think that was something you were
I unlatched the lock on my own. She would prefer the lock.
That was a service
lock.
that you were providing that no one was asking for.
It was it was a free unasked for service.
Yeah. Yeah.
How long was the shoot itself?
It was 18 days.
Ooh, that's
and
quick. Wow.
We had 16 days of prep, and so at least we had more days to shoot than prep.
More days than prep.
So yeah, we prepped for 16, we shot for 18, and then we later in the fall, we shot last summer. Later in the fall, we got 1 day of reshoots or pickups rather.
Wow.
So yeah, it was great.
We have no problem with people making mistakes.
We've moved past that.
What? Oh. No, but it's when they won't admit that it was a mistake. And then they try to put
on
it
set
on
where
you.
someone
on set,
okay.
yeah, but not actors though.
Not actors. So when you were able to show this film with the public in front of a live audience, what was the most meaningful or surprising feedback you got from people about what you'd created?
The beginning of this year, it premiered at Sundance, and I would say, I think I find this in general with the stuff that I have like written and made, that to me it feels, the pitch of it feels very like it's a normal frequency for me. So like the strangeness or the discomfort or the things that feel awkward, I'm like, that seems totally fine. Like that is the behavior of this seems completely fine. So I would say what's always the most confusing is like after, when people are like, I just feel really bad and I'm upset, and I'm like, how come? What do you mean? You don't feel great? You're not like, this was a totally normal thing. I think it's just that because it's like the space that I am hanging out in my head, or it's like how I see things or how I'm processing. I don't notice. Like I don't think of my work as being surreal. I know that it's hyperbolic, but I'm not thinking that it's off or strange. Like that's not my language for what the thing is. It feels, it's my frequency. So I think that is, when you watch something with an audience, also for the first time to have seen something that I made with an audience, it just was, it was really stressful and hard to enjoy, and I don't think I could like hear anything, and then after I just wanted to vomit. So that was that experience.
Yeah, I really liked when people, and I apologize, I don't think it's surreal either. It's
surreal
more
is a
hyper real.
great word.
No, but it's wrong.
A lot of
'cause
people
it's
wrote
not like,
stories saying it felt surreal.
I prefer surreal to somebody saying weird. I hate that, or quirky. Ugh, yuck.
Right. 'Cause it also means nothing. Like, what is quirky?
Yeah, and it's also just like cutesifying something that like took a lot of pain to make in all the areas, you know, in the writing, directing, acting of it. So it's like, don't cutesify our thing. But I was really always happy when people were like, "Oh, I related to this. I saw a part of myself in this." Because that's what we really wanted to do. I mean, it did upset some people, but that was the last thing that we wanted to happen. Our goal was for people to relate to it, and I don't think relating to something comes in like, that's exactly me, you know, but that you experience some sort of, even if there is some sort of seed psychologically or emotionally that you have in what you watch and you identify with it. That's what we were hoping to make people, you know, help people who felt that way feel less alone, you know, because it is a lonely feeling to feel like you are caught in the spiral of failure. And that is something that a lot of people deal with. And I think it's also something that a lot of people avoid dealing with. And I think that that's very unhealthy.
And also the movie shows us failure in relation to what? It's sort of like, what are we constantly measuring ourselves against? Is it the douchebag Michael Cera character? Is it this perceived success that other people have when usually they feel the same way? I mean, and you guys know plenty of very successful people who probably still feel like Isaac every single day. And it's sort of the idea of what's the gauge for this? And I think that's what the movie is trying to answer, which I still don't know what the answer is, but I definitely relate to the struggle. And most people, I'm sure, in this room felt connected to Isaac.
Yeah, it's like it's the race is you're deciding the race. Like there isn't a set race we're all in. We're not, and also the start and finish line is not the same for us. I mean, for the three of us, it's not the same, you know. And so it's very much like it's self-inflicted. What our goals and markers are that will make us feel like a success. And even when you arrive at that thing that's a success, it be it like a certain amount of money or a certain role, like then you are at that thing. And I think there's like 45 seconds of it feeling pretty good. I mean, I kept telling myself, like, while Sundance felt like a nightmare, I was like, I know that this is a nice thing. I was like, I know this is nice. It feels terrible, but I know it's nice. And I'm
terrible in the sense of overwhelming. And
yeah, it was just like, it was like a wedding or something. Like, I think that you're like, this is my perfect day. And then you're like, well, this day is trash. And I think it was like that. It was, because I would see other people have this premiere at Sundance, I was like, when I get that premiere at Sundance, it's going to feel like this.
That's it. That's the next.
Yeah, and then I was there and I was like, well, what is this? I'm like, it's like it's New Year's night, New Year's Eve, and you're like, we're gonna find that perfect part. And you're like, if I'd gone to the other, like, you keep. I think that's just like life. Is like you keep trying to find that like really good New Year's Eve party, and like they're all fucking awful.
You decide to stay home, and you're so much happier.
Yeah, the one that's good is the one with the 6 people at your house and eating food. Like that's the best one. Like, do not go for that other party. It's not good. It just feels
This is such
bad.
great advice.
Sundance is like New Year's for a week because you're just going to these parties and you're like, why am I here?
Right.
This is horror. And then
you're
people.
like, does anyone want me here?
And bouncers being like, you can't come in. We're at capacity. I'm like, this is the party for my movie, though.
Yeah.
I've been in that line. It's crazy.
Yeah, and then
watching people
are you
get
on the
turned
list?
away.
You're like, I directed this. Am I invited?
The amount of times you hear the word sell or sold, you're just like, "Oy,
Hurts.
what is going on?"
It's a lot. It's a lot. And all that energy and excitement doesn't necessarily translate to after. It's like Brigadoon, where it sort of disappears and you come back to LA and you're like, oh, everything I was struggling with before is still here. So, but the movie it's a great achievement. So
Thank you.
don't
Thank you
second
very
guess.
much. Thank
so we have
you.
a couple of audience questions. Want to make sure we get to them. The first one is from, I think, Vic. Am I saying that correctly? Okay. Oh, hi. There you are.
Hi, Vic.
Vic is an actor, and he would like to know if you have any advice for producing one's own work, specifically your approach to film production. And obviously that's a big question, but if you have any general feedback.
I think I remember most recently, I did this interview in Playboy, and the interviewer, who is super lovely, asked a question kind of like this, because she's moving into making films herself. And I said, whenever people say that thing that's like, just get a camera and make it, I'm like, go fuck yourself. Literally, go fuck yourself. And it's just so rude. It's so rude to say that. It is, because everyone in this room wants something, right? Like, sees something for themselves and wants something for yourself. And when someone tells you, just go get a camera and make the thing, it's like, what am I missing? I mean, it's just not that easy, right? If it were that easy, then we'd all be doing it. And the thing is, there are tons of people who are making things who maybe shouldn't be making things, not that it's my place to say, or who don't deserve the things that they get. But I feel my advice is, well, I can only speak for what I did. I really wanted to be directing for film, and nobody was giving me that opportunity. And I made that opportunity for myself. I saved money, and I found a I wrote something. I found money. I met a cinematographer that I wanted to work with, and I happened to know. I went to theater school, so actors I had. Like, I was like, I have actors. I didn't go to film school. I don't have the other things, and so I wrote something that was very small, very contained. It took place in one location. It's something that I could do in 2 to 3 days, and it's something that I also worked a little bit as an editor. I had like self-taught myself editing, so I was able to edit it. Like, it was like base. We had like 10 crew people. I did the wardrobe myself. It was very much like, and I think having gone to theater school is like a part of why I was thinking in this way. And when I do work on things now where there is a little bit more money, and I still am like, oh, why do we need all these people? What do those 5 people do? They've been standing by food this whole day. I just think, I want to understand what every single person on the thing is doing and what their job is, and like that we're all there because we want to be there. I mean, and when you are paying for stuff yourself, I think you are able to curate in that way, that you are hand selecting the people and making sure that everyone's there for you. No one's like, I'm at my 12-hour day. Like, everyone's, if it's going to take 16, 17 hours, they're going to do it. So that's the thing I did. Outside of that, I really don't know, because that's how I made 8 short films, and 6 of them were made exactly like that. And I got sometimes people to give me some money, but I was putting in money to all of the stuff because I just wanted this so badly. And I was like, well, I don't need to like eat that much food, and I don't need to like wear nicer clothes. Like, I have the clothing that I have. I just was spending the least amount of money and saving and writing a lot.
So did you find the short films became your currency, and that you were able to entice people to want to invest in you and invest in your work? Because, I mean, short films seem like a great lower risk opportunity to create something that's almost like a business card. Like, hey, this is my vibe. This is the kind of work that I want to do. Are you on board, essentially? Yeah,
the short films, I don't know if they helped with, I found that they helped with actors in terms of like, I've had luck of my films. And luck feels like the wrong word, because then it feels like it has nothing to do with me. But I have been able to get pretty good actors to be in my stuff. And so I think the shorts really helped with attracting cast. In terms of like, I mean, it took 8 short films, and it was still really hard to get a fucking feature made. And I had friends who'd made like a short film that like didn't get into any festival, and they were like, I'm already making my feature. But I was like, why is this like that for you? And there were so many people like this. So I don't think that they were like guaranteed for like getting financing to make the feature. I mean, it still took a really long time to get our movie made. I think we'd maybe worn people down, and there were people who I don't think read the movie, and they were like, we like 4 of these comedians, this sounds great. And then they were like, oh my God, is that what we made? When it was over.
That's okay, they'd already given you their money.
Totally
it's fine.
Yeah, and I'd say community too, like, invest in the people that you already know who want to collaborate, and then that leads you to meet new people through those people, and you're sort of making this group effort as long as it's agreed upon who is doing what. Michael Cera was really is part of the whole process. Michael Cera we really owe a lot to him for this movie, because he loved Eat, and Eat.
He was in Gregory too.
Yeah.
Right. Gregory.
Yeah, was the first short, and that was, by the time he read Lemon, that was the only short film that Janicza had put out there. And so because of that, he loved Eat. And then I had met him through a mutual friend and then hung out with him a few times. But that happened in a very organic way. I don't think it's ever good to, I don't think it ever works when you're like, hey, how you doing? Here you go. Like, that doesn't ever work.
A little
the
turned
times
off by that.
I've done that, people have been like, yeah, okay,
Right.
no
Yeah.
thanks.
They
But
bristle. They bristle.
it is a little like dating, I'd say, in terms of
Be
getting
smooth.
people to
Be
interest
smooth
you.
and take your
Yeah,
time.
Which I'm.
Oh, a DP with their own camera, by the way, and in sort of like finding the cinematographer. It's great if they have their own camera, because then it's like so much cheaper.
It's a great point.
Yes.
Camera is very expensive. And finally, what are the best parts of being a creative partner with your actual life partner? And that's an anonymous question. The person did not feel comfortable sharing their name, apparently.
The best, I would say, well, with Lemon specifically, because Brett was there all of the days, when it got dark or it felt very lonely, and it did a lot, it was always very comforting to know, while I don't know that everyone was there for the same reason, and it was impossible for them to be, because it was so much born out of us, to be able to look across the room and see a person that I knew was in my corner when it felt like no one else was, that was probably the greatest gift of the experience. And in terms of, to go back to the thing you asked about learning, if I had learned anything about Brett, I think I learned that he was really, I was very impressed that he was able to like perform the film and then also like turn that off and be in producer mode. Because I tried my best to block a lot of the sort of unnice things from him, and I think for the most part I was able to, but sometimes that stuff would just show on my face, and I'm not as good an actor as the actors are, and he would feel that, and he was able to turn off that he was about to do this like intense scene with all of these people, and that he could like get into the thing, kind of like push forward whatever it was that I was asking for or that we needed, that I was getting resistance, and like be my teammate in that, and then be like, okay, I'm back to acting, and then just as if that had never happened. Like, I thought that was pretty seamless, to be able to do both of those, and also keep it so that our fellow cast did not know. I mean, it was like much later when sitting with them and being like, and then on that day, that person, and they're like, what? I mean, because we're friendly with so many of the people, like walking them through like the nightmares of making the movie while they were present, they were like in shock because it seemed so joyous.
Yeah, and well, in answer to that, I do think that a lot of the time the piece that you're working on reflects what's happening, on set or backstage or wherever. So it wasn't that hard, because the immense anxiety that what is happening in your life should never be blocked out necessarily from when you're acting, because all of that anxiety of producing and making sure that things were in a row, and that if I had to go and deal with something that she didn't have time to deal with because she was manning everything, the anxiety from that was perfect for the scene. My character's in a complete spiral of anxiety the whole time. So it's like these negative things that can be happening in your life. There's got to be a good reason for them in some way, and I think that's to put into what you're doing artistically. So it should be used, make some use of them. Otherwise, it's just a drag all around. And, and it was just great to see. It was very hard. It's very hard to watch your partner not get what they deserve. And the lack of justice. I felt a really distinct sense of a lack of justice, that this movie was not getting made, that not everyone was saying to her, yes, whatever you want, you're a genius, because that is what I knew from the get-go. I couldn't ever be a partner with somebody who did not excel at what they do. I can't like sit there and be like, that's good. I feel like that's probably just a nightmare scenario that I would never be able
had to feign interest and respect for what she's done artistically.
Obviously. So it's like, so to see everybody, she's telling me to shorten
wrap it up.
But you got a long time.
I'm sorry.
And I'm talking about you.
I'm just ready for you to wrap it up.
She doesn't like to be complimented. She wants dinner. No, but to see your partner's vision come to fruition like that, what is like, and to see that struggle, at least on that level, end, stop it, is like the best joy that you can, what?
You already said that, just like period.
Is the greatest joy that you can experience in your life.
Period.
Thank
you
for
so
shitting
much,
on my
guys.
moment there. Can you believe this?
Thank you guys for coming. Have a great night.
I mean, like leave me. I get my chance to ask. It was for both of us. Thank you.
Thank you.